and said, what can we do to make it go faster? We came up with a list of about 4 or 5 things to even try and make it go faster. I think his position that 3 weeks is a reasonable period of time is correct. Now, you might have heard me say 2 weeks is where I'd like to see it. I would. But I don't, now that I've examined it thoroughly, I think a 3-week is a reasonable system. We're going to do everything we can to make it faster. There's several programs that have to talk to each other in order to get paid, 3, in fact, to talk to each other. We're going to try and make that more automated, where they can just go right through the 3. You talked about communication. I agree, it's much better. I insist that next time every voting location will have taped onto the desk, you will be paid in 3 weeks. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that no one hears from somebody who doesn't know, oh, it's 2. You see what I'm saying? There's a piece of paper on everybody's desk and a few other things like that, you know? Sorry. Todd, you want to try? And then the other thing was about transparency. I'm kind of sad to see Colonel West has gone. But, you know, I believe very strongly in transparency, and I couldn't agree with you more about what you were saying, that, you know, you are sometimes trying to kill a gnat with a bazooka. You know what I mean? You know, why are we spending all this money on printers and the like? And it's to answer the question is, you know, let's not have the question. You know what I mean? Hyder and I had a town hall meeting recently where some folks showed up to it and described it as a lynching is what it was more like than it was a town hall meeting. But, you know, these were election deniers who mostly came to the meeting and wanted somebody's head about it. Hyder did an excellent job of responding to each and one of those. And the best thing that he ever said was this. This one guy said, you know, well, you know, this thing's hooked up to the internet. And when it's hooked up to the internet, it's sending the information off to, you know, Mars or wherever it was that it was being altered and sent back. And Hyder confronted the guy and said, there is no internet connection to this machine whatsoever. And he goes, yes, there is. And Hyder said, you know, I got a screwdriver right here. Open it up now and show me where it is, right? Well, this shuts the guy down. And in fact, he was their main lecturer, the guy that they were putting up to say, you know, see, elections is all fraud. And they pulled him off the stage after Hyder had said those words. You see what I'm saying? And so I thought that that was very effective. And that's the reason why I like the idea of printers and things like that. Yes, you're killing a gnat with a bazooka, but I think it's important to do. And I can't tell you the number of positive responses we had to that open house. I mean, from those people, you know, from the very people who came to talk about it, because look, you're being upfront, you're being open and obvious and things like that. So I think that's very important. Okay. All right. So let me talk to you a little bit about voting locations. This is my district. And so as a result, I've asked to kind of step into it. You know what I mean? That's no criticism of the elections department. It's just me saying, you know, let me take charge because I'm the one who ultimately has to make the decision as to where all the voting locations are. So let me talk to you first about our Redeemer. Our Redeemer is the largest voting location that we have, and it's something that I'm deeply concerned about, and in fact, still am concerned about. And I'll show you why in a minute. The other one is First Baptist in Richardson. This is another large top 10 voting location that we had that they said that they don't want to do it anymore. Both have said similar reasons why. They have said it's based upon convenience. In other words, it's very inconvenient for them to have a voting location. It just is. And so as a result, we just don't want to do it anymore. And so as a result, we have to find places that are going to replace it. You're going to hear my presentation. There are places that are saying, I don't want you anymore, and we're, you know, desperate to find replacements. And then there are others that are saying, can I please be a voting location? And I get resistance about that. So I want to talk to you about both of them along those lines. So if we can go to the next slide. Very good. All right, good. So our office has attempted to renegotiate or negotiate with a number of different folks. I want to be clear, our Redeemer, one of the issues that they had was they wanted a big dollar amount for their location, $42,000 for their voting location when we did a vote. And that's a lot more than any other voting location in the county by factors of 5 or 6, you know what I mean? We were willing to pay it, you know what I mean? Whatever it is you want, you got it. But they have really said no anyway to this. And so we're looking at others. So if we go to the next slide. All right, so this is where our Redeemer is located. And here's where the next big locations are. I'm not saying all locations. I'm saying next big locations are. like Marsh Lane Baptist is down the road, Adelia Branch, and really our replacement is the Skillman Library is what we currently have. We need a better location because every mile means you lose a voter, period. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So, here's a stat that I found, 0.25 mile increase in distance reduces ballot cast by 2 to 5%. So that's the reason why we've got to find a location that is near our Redeemer in order to replace it. We can't have Skillman Library as our replacement because it is miles away. Let's go to the next one. So here's all the places that we have contacted, okay? And in fact, there's more than that. The elections, long before I ever got involved, had a list, and I think your list was 10, 15, somewhere along those lines, okay? And this does not include those, all right? These are all the folks that my office has contacted. Currently still on the line is Northwest Bible. This is my biggest hope, as it were, for a replacement. It is down the road a little ways, but it's on a major road. Zion Lutheran and Park Cities Baptist are some of the other locations that we have that might be able to replace it. But I want to talk to you about another location. That other location is Boone Elementary. Boone Elementary is Highland Park Independent School District, okay? It is an elementary school. Heider, correct me if I'm wrong, because you know better than I do. I believe that I have the right to say, this is a public building. I get to use you for both early and voting day.
That's correct.
Yeah. So I can go to Highland Park Independent School District and say, sorry, we're taking over. You know what I mean? The problem with that is it will have all kinds of pushback. I mean, there's all kinds of political pushback that will happen there. You're going to put my kids in the way of voters. You got crazies out there and you're going to have them at that voting location. This isn't good. Now, if I have to, I will do it. I mean, if all of these other places that we have talked to simply say no, I'm out of options, One of the things that Heider and I talked about was perhaps seeing if I couldn't rent the parking lot of the mall that's right, North Park Mall, borrow part of their parking lot and put a T building in. And, there's some rules about no mobile voting centers. Are you with me? Well, it's not mobile. It's not on wheels. I put it on concrete, there it is, I come, and you want to talk about some money, I getting 2 T buildings in there, and it's going to be some serious dollars. So, I think Boone Elementary is what I call the ace in the pocket, but it's not one that I want to play unless I absolutely have to. So that's where we're at. I talked to Highland Park Independent. Please don't talk about this outside this room. I talked to Highland Park Independent School District next week. Okay? They don't know I'm coming yet, is basically what I'm saying. All these other locations have heard from me. I'm still hearing from the Dallas Women's Center. I really like the Women's Club. I really like that one. If I could get it, I will. Okay? Any questions? Yeah.
Do you have like a budget to negotiate with in case the first offer isn't accepted, maybe sweeten the pot a little bit?
Yes is the answer, and it kind of sort of my call along those lines as to what those dollars are. And, I was willing to pay $42,000 for our Redeemer. That's a pretty good price. You know what I mean? So there you have it. Okay.
I have a question. Is
Sure.
it possible, I was just talking to some of the groups about this that I'm in. Is it possible or is it feasible? Would it even make sense to have a voting center inside North Park Mall?
Yes, I've looked at that is the short answer. I don't think that they want it. I made some inquiries along those lines, to one of their empty spots that there is. It's not very convenient either. If you think about it, you got to get out of your car, you got to slog all the way
It's a
through.
pretty long walk, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a little worried about it, but I'd do it if I could get it.
Yeah.
Good thought. Any other questions?
So,
Yes. Yeah.
who has the authority to represent the Dallas County Elections Department to negotiate the voting centers? And the location?
Hyder does, Melissa does, I do.
Okay, so is that you and all the commissioners? or
Yeah,
that
each
you
commissioner really is the one who makes the ultimate decision
Make
and
the final decision, but in the discussions and negotiations prior to taking the recommendation, because Hyder takes the recommendation
Yes.
to the commissioner's court, correct?
That's correct.
At that point, you all either approve or not. But prior
The
to
standard
that
operating
recommendation-
procedure is he does.
Okay, that's what I was getting to.
Yeah,
So typically, the county administrator, election
Okay.
administrator is
Yeah.
the one who negotiates
Yes,
in those voting center selections and the
Yeah.
decisions around the fees and the
Right.
pricing
right.
and those types of things. That's correct.
Yeah, and the only, I know, I'll say it and then I'm gonna let you talk. The only reason why I'm stepping in is because it's our Redeemer #1 and First Baptist, which is the top 10. And I decided, and because we cannot find anything up and down Northwest Highway or Park Lane, it's going to be a political issue if I have to go to Boone Elementary. So I decided that I would step into this spot as a result. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, obviously, everything ends in commissioner's court, right?
Mhm.
Everything we do, sometimes people ask me, will you add this? And I'm like, I'll put it on the list, but, you know, the court is the one that has the ultimate yay or nay, right? But the day-to-day, the mundane, hey, let's go, let's ask, let's get the contract, let's, you know, inspect the site, make sure it's available. So that whole list, you know, those 4 or 5 he has there, they all are an option. It's like, all right, now give us a break. We'll go in, do a survey, make sure they meet the
Mhm.
accessibility requirements,
Sure.
ask all these questions and then come back and go like, hey, gotta scratch these 2 out. It's one of these 3. What do you want to do?
I just don't want us
And,
to find ourselves after the fact, being questioned legally
Yeah.
around the process and the selection of the replacement of our Redeemer or the replacement of the church. I think
the
it's.
formal act is when we go to court and we say, approve the list or vote
Yeah.
on the list, right? That is the one formal act that legally has to happen. It has to be approved. How you come up with the list, that's not.
We don't care about the planning
Right.
part. The
But I'm just concerned about an elected official.
Yeah.
That's representing a government agency and having conversations and negotiations. And I just don't want us to find out, and Eric, this is Eric's piece. I'm not that person, but I just want to provide my concern about that
That's good.
because we don't know down the road what can happen. And if we can prevent some of this, you know, by eliminating, you know, and allow you to take that, because that is your role,
Yeah.
for you to not even put us in a position. I
Gotcha.
just don't want, I feel like we're a little vulnerable
Gotcha.
if we continue with that type of work.
Okay.
Let me be clear, I've also engaged with Alan West. Oh, I'm back by now. No? Okay. I've engaged with Alan West to say, is he? Okay.
He
good.
was, I don't know.
Yeah. I've engaged with him and said, what do you recommend? Where do you want me to go? What is it that you want me to see? Is there a place you want me to talk to? Do you know anybody? So, you know, and also with the Democratic Party, man, this isn't just me doing it. I'm doing it with the parties and in fact have informed them every step of the way. In fact, I was hoping he would stay on so that he could hear my briefing right now as to these locations. That's really counting on that. There's also, I have some relationships with some of these folks. Northwest Bible Church, I literally lived across the street from them. So, you know, it's like, I know those people. So I wanted to engage with them, but I understand your concern.
So, excuse me, and I had a question. Will you finish? I'm
I am
sorry, Dr.
finished, thank you.
So, Commissioner, my question has to do with size.
Yeah.
So have we?
Yep.
Yeah,
All these places have the right size. Is that the
Okay.
question?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, you know, is
Yeah.
that enough
Yeah,
space?
yeah.
Because I know how gorgeous that Dallas Women's Club is. You know, I'm wondering if it's big enough to step in for our Redeemer's Church.
It is. The question for me is, does it have the right connections?
Yes.
And the plugs? And I don't know the answer.
See,
to
that would be the next question is,
Right,
because
right.
all these machines, we
Yep.
say wireless one day, right? But it's still wires going everywhere.
Well, and I mentioned something earlier. I mean, and we've talked about it. If we can't find one as big, there's nothing that says a court can choose to have 2
2 or 3.
to replace them,
Yeah,
right? So, hey, look, bottom line is our Redeemer used to serve 20,000 people.
sure
per vote.
did.
So, well, then now we're gonna need these 2 or 3 to serve those same 20 or that kind of volume in the
Right.
area, right? So it's a
It's a
choice,
piece,
right?
2 or
So
3.
this is all the feel the ground and let's see what options we have and then go to court. I mean, obviously this all being within Commissioner Summerman's district, he's taking the lead, but it goes to court. We have one case in District 3 and we're working with the Commissioner Price's office. They're like, hey, what do you think about this as well, right? Because they're not small little mundane, hey, this church wants to charge us a little more to paint some, sure, let's help them.
Right.
They're bigger decision, right?
Yeah.
Especially one, like I said, that could be perceived as a political issue. It's the largest Republican side. In DC3, we have some of the largest Democrat sides, so we gotta be careful with the perception of things as well.
We do.
Also address something that you were saying, about the political issue. That's why I'm here, by the way. You know, I could just make this decision. You see what I'm saying? I could just say, well, independently, Indy says, let's go to X, Y, Z. You see what I'm saying? Well, one of the reasons why I came to the Citizens Advisory Committee is to say, what do you think about what I'm doing here? You know what I mean? Is to get your input, is to say, are these locations look good? Does anybody got any other thoughts? What is your position on this? So that I can hear it and not just, listen to my own echo chamber, as it were. I don't have to be here. I wanted to be here to get your input, quite frankly, every last one of yours input, and to see if you have any thoughts. Okay?
So Commissioner, one last question.
Sure.
So the ones that say decline, that's the total declination.
Yep.
We're not gonna go back to
Nope.
them.
No, I've groveled thoroughly, is the short answer.
Okay.
Dallas Children's Theater, what about Half Price?
Half price books?
Yeah, they have like a whole
Yeah.
open space and a
Could. Is,
huge parking lot.
yeah, they could. Now, let me tell you about that. It is, that's right. That Central Expressway is like a wall.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It really is. And no one wants to cross it. That's the reason why, another reason why Skillman Church, Skillman Library is so terrible in ideas, because you have to cross the freeway,
Sure do.
And the people on the west side of Central don't, the west side don't go to the east side. They just don't, especially to vote. You know what I mean? Good.
One,
Yeah, please.
it's just part of the conversation, so you get an idea, a lot of these churches that have said no, and Our Redeemer, I think it was one of them. They've implemented after school programs, a lot of them, and so their reality starting not long ago has changed, right? And so they're saying, look, we have activities with kids now that we probably didn't have 3-5 years ago. We're starting to not feel comfortable, and looking down at November 2024 with the environment we have, we're pulling the plug in this, right? And that's part of the conversation. I mean,
Wow.
people are worried about November. That's a reality. That factors a lot into this, like, I'm not sure. Come back in May next year,
We'll consider it.
right?
But let me go to the next slide.
Sorry.
Let's talk about First Baptist, okay? I groveled to them to let you all know, please, can I have you back? And they said no, for the same reasons, inconvenience, kids, things like that. Let's go to the next slide. So here are all the places we are looking at, okay, First Baptist in and about the area. The Methodist Church there in Richardson, the one that used to be the voting location. When I was on the ballot, in fact, that's where I posted up, was at that Methodist Church. I had a conversation with them this morning and basically said, please, can I have it? You know what I mean? And their concern was also an issue of security. And I said, we can give you money for you to buy the security to take care of that concern. There's also a number of these locations that are commercially located, and some of them are terrific locations. I mean, they absolutely are. But what I want to do is have a place that will consistently give us a voting location. And the reason why, I imagine all of you know, that's where I voted last time. In fact, some of you don't even look, I imagine. You just go to the place you voted at 100 times, right? And so I want to make sure that this is a place that we can go back to over and over again. And the Methodist Church will have voter memory in it. Eventually, however, we hope that the reason why this place is chosen and the reason why the Methodist Church was chosen is because Richardson City Hall burned down. Okay, and that was the location for it. And eventually, when they come back, voter memory hopefully will come back associated with that, and we'll go back to that. You with me? So there you have it. Do you all have any thoughts about this?
Yeah. Do you need any help?
Yeah.
One of those places, because I know,
Yeah.
I grew up in Richardson.
Yeah.
I know a lot of those places.
Please.
Okay.
Yes is the answer. That's the reason why I'm here, is to get your input and your help.
Yeah.
Any thoughts or help that you might be able to give me would be
But we
great.
We still have Richland College, right?
We do.
In that area.
We do.
Yeah, the college. Are you sending, can you send us that? Or-
Yeah, sure. Happy to do so. We'll get, Todd will take care. Okay.
When you refer to the Methodist Church, are you referring to Hamilton Park?
No. This is,
You said the Methodist.
yeah,
I don't know which
well,
one
help me with the name of it, Richardson Methodist Church, right next to the,
What about Arapahoe United Methodist Church?
no,
Is
it's
that-
not that. It is United Methodist Church of Richardson. United Methodist Church of Richardson. Sorry,
That's
thank you.
it.
Thank you, thank you. It just took me a minute to find it, and thank you, Tracy. You were such a big help. Thank you.
I made eye contact.
All right. Good. All right, good.
Excuse me,
Let's,
Commissioner?
yes, please.
Yes, this is John yours. Do I understand our Redeemer is off the map for good?
Yes,
So never more?
nevermore.
Okay, so to alleviate any issues with that, we probably need to make some grand announcement, because that's a huge place. I mean, that's where I always have gone for 20 years.
Richardson, that's,
Yes, will be the answer.
So-
We will do that. And in fact, I'm planning on doing a press release or a conference if they want it, to say, this one's gone, this is where the new one is, but I don't want to do it until I don't want to create the panic until I've got the new place. You see what I'm saying? And again, another reason why I'm stepping in. See what I'm saying?
Thank
So-
you, appreciate that.
You bet. You bet. So here are the miles to the next nearest big locations around. Okay? All right, next slide. Okay. Now let's talk about people who want to be voting centers. Okay? Mosques.
yes.
They have hit me especially hard, and I have agreed that they should be voting locations. There are a number of them located in this area, and let me tell you what happened. So recently, IANT, I've forgotten what that stands for. It is in Richardson, okay? They asked to be a voting location, and I agreed with them at the last 2 elections. I said, yes, let's make you a voting place, okay? I had elections show up. They did a nice little evaluation of it. And I mean, they really wanted this place to be a voting location, and it was a success. I mean, I would call it a raving success, quite frankly. I don't know what you guys would call it, but I would, okay? All right, and now 2 other mosques have asked me to do so likewise. One of them is in Carrollton. They have 3,000, 4,000 attendees. Let me remind you that faith says you show up, 5 times a day just to come to that location. And they're showing up already, is the short answer. And they've expressed this concern to me, and it resonated with me. They said, I imagine, Andy, places, people who would be uncomfortable in voting in a mosque. I said, yes. Why are you telling me that? To try and get you to have a mosque. He said, because that's the way we feel going to your churches.
Right.
Okay? And I said, yeah, that's a darn good point. Okay? Can we have our own voting locations? And I said in Richardson, the answer was yes. And I'd like you all's approval. I don't know if I get a vote or whatever, but I would like you all to talk about this and tell me what you think. So let me go to the next slide before you finish that thought. There are some locations not that far away from here, not the least of which is that one, which is the Josie Ranch Library. It's only 0.9 miles, okay? So I am kind of laying on top of somebody who already has a voting location. When I did that at IANT, and it got a big response, so I think it's appropriate in this instance to do something like that. Let's go to the next slide. The other location is the Valley Ranch Islamic Center, okay? Another, big place, been there since 2009. Thousands of people go to this particular place of worship. And if we could, go to the next slide. Great. And, again, we do have some places right on top of it, not the least of which is Valley Ranch Library, I think it is. No, yeah, Valley Ranch Library is only a mile away. Again, kind of laying on top of each other. But I want to do this, I think, because, of what I just said. They're comfortable voting there, and they should be able to be given a place that is comfortable to be able to vote. Next slide. And, again, talking about, a March 5th election, what I'm talking about? 810 people showed up to it, 127 were brand new voters. That's a big number. I mean, I don't know of any, I never did the research, but I don't know of any other single location that has 127 new voters. You know what I mean? And if I said to you, I know if we just open up this one center, I can get you 127 new voters. Yes, is the answer. You know what I mean? And these other mosques are bigger than this one, just to let you know.
It seems like when we discussed several mosques previously, there was some pushback from the municipal governments.
Yep.
Okay, I thought that's what I remember. And so the question right today is, are we not going to consider the local municipal governments and their feedback in making these recommendations?
if it is a valid reason. I can be blunt, okay?
Who can prove the validity? That's
Right.
the issue.
Okay,
They
so,
couldn't prove it previously. I think we acquiesced because they were the local officials,
Right.
so
so for example,
the city manager.
right, this city election, you know, that we had with the IA, I think it changed the face of that city. It did. It changed the face of it. And I've been approached by other members who are worried about their position because it changed the face of it, saying, would you please shut that down? I mean, I got asked by one city council member, would you please shut that down? And my response was, no, you know, I'm not gonna do that just so you can get elected.
I want us to be consistent
I agree.
again with the
Agreed.
process.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if we are not going to allow the input of our municipal elected officials and their staff and administration in towards the recommendation, these recommendations, then let's just be consistent with all of them.
I agree with you. And if it is a city election, they have a lot more sway with me than any other time. You know what I mean? But in this November election, I don't, you know what I'm saying? Is my thought along those lines. And if they have this argument to me, and it's the one that I want to reject with y'all's approval, it goes like this. I don't want to shut any others down. You know what I mean? Well, you shut this down to have a mosque? You know what I mean? Think about, you just said that people will be uncomfortable in a mosque. I agree. I might be. I don't want to shut down any others. I want to open up a new one is all I want to do. Now that means I've got more voting locations in my area. Yes, that is more cost. You know what I mean? But I'm not shutting down the right to anybody else vote. You see what I'm saying?
Sure.
Yeah. So, yes, and I don't know what the other pushback was in prior times. You know what I mean? Well, maybe those were other commissioners.
Everybody,
know.
so from my experience, when I was on the VSAT, they had input, but that doesn't mean, but we still get to vote.
No.
We don't go, I mean, I know me personally, I don't
It just
vote just because
depends.
of their input.
There were times when VCAC was making the recommendations.
Right,
And you had city administrators on the VCAC.
and they
And if
gotta
you look at the
vote,
numbers,
they gotta vote.
their numbers are larger than the CEAC.
So can I,
Yeah. Jump in there.
Because it's
I'm gonna jump
31
in and I'm
cities.
gonna be very honest in my ignorance here.
Mhm, sure.
Here's what I know. The code says locations to vote in the November election are set by Commissioners Court, period.
Right.
We can say whatever we want. VSAC can say whatever we want,
We
but it's
recommend,
Commissioners Court.
yes.
Now, Dallas County has set up a Citizens Advisory Committee and a Vote Centers Advisory Committee. The Vote Centers Advisory Committee has to be created when you decide to adopt the Vote Centers program to provide a recommendation on the methodology to select, et cetera, et cetera. Once that step's taken, I don't know that there's anything in the law that mandates that Commissioners Court have to convene this or any other committee or group to make their decisions.
Hmm.
That's gonna be more of a, and that's why I'm saying I'm very, very blunt here.
Yeah, no, that's
What
right.
is the process the court wants to follow? What are the local politics? So if we want to do it through our committees or we want to do it
Right.
ourselves?
Now,
And
tell me if
whatever
I'm wrong.
decision is made, if we could communicate that quickly.
Right.
Because I know that we have trained our citizens in one way, and they expect certain things based upon our previous process.
Right, exactly.
And so if we decide to do anything different from what has been done previously, it's just a matter of communication, letting people know, VCAC, CAC, your role is not to assist in the recommendation of centers or whatever the change is going to be. And that it's going to solely be at the foot of the commissioners. And I mean, that's the law.
And I've seen it, because I've been asked, like, well, how do other counties do it? I've seen both ways. There 3 different, 4, 5 flavors of it all over the place, right? Because it's,
But Dr. Lavelle, we made, okay, for example, for the last election, we made recommendations and
Yes.
there were commissioners who took 0 of our recommendations.
Yes.
Is that what?
Because they can.
So
Yes.
that's not a change.
No. The change is not so much as their approval. I'm talking about the process to even get to that point, because they could have even They could have easily said, okay, thank you, and accepted all the
They
recommendations.
could have.
But ultimately, it's their decision. But my concern is the process. If we're gonna change that process, whether we like the process or not, whatever it's going to be, just communicate the process.
Right.
That's all I'm saying.
And let me tell you about that. Okay, so I asked about that, right? Shouldn't I go to VCAC is what I said, right? And I asked Tyler, shouldn't I go to VCAC about this? And he goes, yeah, but they're not gonna meet before the election.
Correct.
and I'm like,
That's right.
Okay, and I said, all right, what you want me to do here? You know, and he goes, what's your decision? And I said, I want some input before I make these decisions.
Okay.
And so I decided to come to you all to see it, even though, you know, VCAC is perhaps the better location to go talk to them about. But I can't meet with them. They don't have a meeting between now and then. So I'm checking with you.
Sure.
Is the short answer. And
Well, and there's I think like this adding things is probably more of that, what do we want to do, right? But the regular replacement, everything we talked about before, adding this, it's just, I guess, the regular maintenance. Like I said, when we started, we have a ideal 469. This was not available. We didn't convene VSAC, right? It's our job to say, let's find a replacement. We make it happen. We go out the election and we said, hey, this time we went out with 458. We couldn't replace the other 9, 11. Okay, we went down with a little less. We don't convene the committee for that. If we're sticking to kind of the main plan they've provided us. 469, the court approved it, stick to it, and operate within those boundaries, right? So,
Yeah.
I guess,
yeah, and let me be clear. This is the reason why I'm here, is to get you all's input. And I want, when I get done and somebody says, why did you do this, right? I want to say, well, I did. It was my decision. I take full responsibility for it. But I talked to both party chairs. I had their input. I went to, you know, y'all, and I got y'all's input on it. And then I made my decision, you know what I mean? And so far, I haven't gotten any pushback from anybody, but if y'all have pushback, I want to hear it. I want to know it. There you have it.
Well, Commissioner, I just want to say, if there's a community reaching out to you, saying they feel more comfortable in doing something or having the opportunity, then you have numbers that kind of bear that out. You know, that's what we should be reaching for. That's what we should be addressing. Everyone having access without perceived or real intimidation in any way, or just whatever the thought process may be. We need to make these things accessible to everyone. And you've got a community that's reaching out and asking you for those things. My 2 cents as a member of this committee is absolutely open it up to folks who have that. I think it's just become, you know, commonplace where we talk about the churches and we talk about the synagogues and we talk about these things, and it's just become rote in terms of the way we think about them.
Sure.
Mosh should have that same very opportunity to be inclusive in terms of our electoral process.
And I'd like to thank you with experimenting with this, because as a person who participated in VCAC, I'd rather have commissioners communicate their priorities before we get to commissioners court for the approval, than be blindsided like we were, what was it, in January or February when the voting sites were, because that was like, my hair was on fire.
I agree. But what did we meet for?
Commissioner,
Right.
Commissioner?
Yeah.
Excuse me, yes, Mr. Uris, listen, I'd like to echo Eric's commentary, because, I mean, I sat on those VCAC committees when we opened voting centers for literally 3 people. I mean, it just made my head explode. So, I mean, if we're gonna do that, we really need to be okay with opening it up so more people can vote, because we voted down some of those sites in some rather austere places because one commissioner knew 1 or 2 or 3 people who wanted to vote there. So
Let me add this real quick. Our terminology, and I've been on the last 3 or 4 VSACs that we convened from the kind of the beginning, and we call it VSAC.
Oh, sorry.
Just for terminology's sake and consistency. VCAC, what is that? We
Right.
called it VSAC, so just.
Okay.
My bad.
No, it's not your.
Commissioner, I'd like to echo the same thing. I think it's totally makes great sense, especially particularly because you have a community and a religious community reaching out to you. I like the inclusiveness and the diversity of this. Clearly, it's still in the distinct minority of other religious institutions that have opened up for voting centers. So I would commend you for looking into this and totally support this.
I want to let you know I engaged somebody else. I engaged Elaine to actually go out and visit at least one of these sites. I know that she did. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. We're not meeting with them again next week because we're gonna be, they want to do voter registration. They want to put up stuff to let people know about voting,
Voter education and registration.
education, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And,
That is
you know,
nice.
to this argument that you all were just saying about it, you know, disproportionate impacts, polling places and policies, you know, they affect mostly minority, populations. And so, you know, to put them where the minority population is just makes perfect sense. Because if you don't do that, then they don't show up and vote, and you want to make them comfortable where they do vote. So, you know, all the more importance. And that's it. That's all I have. So I hear I'm okay with these thoughts along those lines, and I will report back to your chairs, both of them, with what happened with my other meetings, especially those associated with our Redeemer and First Baptist and their replacement. And we'll let you know, where we landed and what we did. You know, like Hyder said, I might go with 2 locations if I can get away, if I can get them. You know what I mean? That'd be even better. Thank you for letting me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Interrupt.
Thank you, Commissioner. When we go to the next topic, we'll go ahead and break it down in terms of topic. If there's any public commentary regarding what we just spoke of, we'll give anybody who may be online or present from the public that wants to speak or ask any questions on this topic. Anything online? If not, then you've got the floor.
I will leave you to that, okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Names for attendance.
Lost ta-da.
Yes, you have a quorum by the way now.
There we
We
go.
do now.
So,
Okay, so I'll try to be quick because I know we added some content there. Vote centers, we talked about this, right? From the get-go. One of the questions that Chair Eric asked was some information you had gotten about rejections, about voter registration cards, increasing like 70%. We went back, looked at the numbers. There has been, since 2020, right? There was about a 6% reject on the number of registration cards that we got in 2020. And that number's been more around 10% the last 3 years. And so you have the breakdown there. We'll definitely be working with Nick's team and our VDR training. Because some of these things are things that, at least the numbers tell us, should be caught. You know, when the card is received, missing signature, missing date of birth, missing ID number, right? It's not in the form. So why didn't we tell the person when they're handing in the application, whoa, you're missing a number, you're missing a signature, right? Citizenship not indicated, that's that little box that says, I am a citizen, yes, right? Those are things that we should catch when that form is being submitted. So we'll be working on that to make sure that at least those obvious ones are addressed. Invalid residence address, that's a little tougher for a person receiving a form to know that that street name is not a road but a street, or that the apartment number is missing because that's an apartment complex, that kind of thing. But the good news is we don't have 70% reject. The opportunity for improvement is to go back to that 6%. Sense?
Yeah, it does, but I do have a question
Yeah.
about invalid resident address, because I know that unhoused people can register to vote. So what is considered an invalid resident address?
Correct me if I'm wrong. When we're gonna enter it, the system says the address you're putting in doesn't exist in Dallas County. Now, it could be that you wrote 123 Main Street and it was Main Avenue. Could be that you didn't put the apartment number, so we don't know where to register you in the apartment complex. Could be anything that doesn't let the input. Go ahead.
A business address or a PO box. We get a lot of people who put like post office boxes that actually have addresses, like suite addresses. But when we go to enter them, they're not.
Does it say that on the green
It has
card?
to be a
It has to be a
residence
physical,
address.
does it say physical?
I don't know the language, but
But that's a state prescribed for, right? The registration form
Right.
is what the state created.
I think it's got your 2 options for your residence address
your
and
mailing
mailing address.
Yeah, they're separate. I know they're separate.
Yeah, 'cause
But
you have the
that
ability to
word
mail
Physical
it.
address is there.
It does.
The street and avenue, drive and so forth issues should not be a problem, because if you have the right zip code,
That's what
I mean, like when you go to DCAD, to plug it in, you don't even put drive or street, or you just put the number and the computer figures it out.
It sure does.
No, I agree. I was just saying things
Oh,
that
okay.
could be, right?
Could-
I don't know that there's a Main Street and Main Avenue within the same zip code, but if there were, then that would be one of those okay, I don't know which way to go with this one.
So if people are registering unhoused people, and maybe this is just a question I need to have as we're on there, what do they need to make sure? I mean, they have to have an address that car can go to. Is that right? Is that what the deal is?
Nick, do you know that for your VDR stuff, what the directions are?
I don't, I know we can, I just don't know specifically what they need to fill out.
I can call
Yeah,
you later.
I just don't want to say wrong information. I've looked at it.
That's what I thought too, but that's not an address.
That's not for mailing.
Let me ask this, when you have an address that you're looking up, when you're looking up an address, and does it just give you, this is not a valid residential address? Does it give you anything that would be comparable, that could be if you have street versus avenue, for example?
In the voter reg system?
Yeah, so one, physically, just from my
Remember
own
when I
personal
said one of the things
application.
we need to do is upgrade that VR system?
Yes,
Some of those things that you are thinking about that are Google instinctive every day on your phone thing, they're not there because this is a 20-year-old system. So
right.
you basically have this very old 1990s looking, you type into boxes and you hit a thing and it'll just turn yellow like you did something wrong. But it doesn't autocomplete, it doesn't search, it doesn't do.
So all y'all have is, this is not an address, and that's, then.
That-
that
no match,
pops
try
apart,
again.
No match.
Yeah,
But that's
wrong
not
password, try again kind of
the
thing.
end of the game also, right? When it doesn't match, then we do have our GIS team that does the DCAT files. They do
Yeah.
research the address, and if they can't validate anything, that's when the notice goes out because we couldn't. figure
Right,
it
there's a
out.
whole process we're
Yeah.
not talking about to get to that point where, look, we really can't figure it out. We really.
Excuse me, Hyder.
Go ahead.
Yeah, there was a challenge earlier this year where all we had printed were ballots and registration applications in Spanish. So when I'm handing them out to my kids at school, I mean, we did not have any of them in English. That could be one of the multiple reasons, but that was a challenge earlier this year. So just word to the wise, we didn't have any English registration applications cards. From there,
Where would that have been?
I work at Woodrow Wilson High School, and I came to that office because all we had was Spanish Spanish applications, and there were none to be had in English. That's something that's just something word to the wise.
Okay, well, it's that, I mean, again, anything that might induce, I guess, the user to misuse the form or not fill it out completely, and maybe the language availability is one, right? Hey, I don't have one in English, but try one this in Spanish, or vice versa. And they miss something, they don't see something relevant.
That's
right?
what they
It's a
did.
Good point. Good
That's
point.
what they did.
But, and so one of the things we want to address is in our VDR training, make sure we highlight, look, okay, you didn't see it as a person filling it out, right? So if you send it by mail, no one's there, but if one of us, VDR, let's say VDR, one of us, VDRs or one of us, receives that form, there's a chance there to look at it and say, hey, hold on, you didn't sign it, right? You sure that's your address or whatever? Okay. Again, more lessons learned, success cases. We talked about, some of these things. We changed the way we do our paper management, little things that didn't cost much, but we're now always starting with the number one. We've got our pre-printed number. That's kind of helped cool off some of the discussions around, voter fraud and, election integrity. We haven't had any paper issues, so we're good. We'll continue to print those tapes that we were talking about. Some of these things I talked about in the process, right? One thing I do want to highlight, we had that recount in March after the primary, and that's perfect, and kudos to our poll workers, poll worker.
That was actually brought up today.
Because it's really interesting to come back, we did it in this room actually, and open those ballot boxes and pull those ballots and those records and literally say, wow, like the majority, there are errors, like there's human errors. So, okay, this poll worker didn't sign this form or didn't put the seal number, but overall, I give them a good grade. That said, there's some work to do with the parties there, right? To say, hey, this is the third election in a row, this poll worker can't get it. So can you stop appointing them, please? That's important, right? Because we get that. We get that feedback, like, why, they call me. Why is this person there again? Because your party chair appointed it, not me. I can't do anything about that, right? And when I do, it's not taken, lightly. We're talking about having more techs out in the field, looking at those routes, basically, how do we respond faster? we didn't have a lot of issues in March, said this in the past, but in March, 17% turnout. You know, if you have a machine that broke, we probably didn't even, you know, you have 10, you haven't had 10 people all day, we're never even gonna show up to fix that machine. Those were decisions we make. Why would you spend time and resources in, right? We're not gonna be in that situation in November. So one conversation we've had as a team here is March is not representative of November. Do not assume that we're gonna wash, rinse, repeat. So we're looking at that, right? Increasing our footprint in our, and then the usual, hey, what were our top 10 issues out there? How do we address them in training, highlight them, make sure, for example, talking about the recount. One of the things we want to tell the poll workers is, look, you guys bust your chops for 12 hours, but the only proof we have of your work is the paperwork. And it really, you know, it's really sad that some people will say, you know, you don't do a good job because the paper doesn't have a number when you've done a great job for 14 hours and you just, so that's the kind of lesson we kind of build upon to get back to them, say, how about we focus on this? And then we don't have to have this discussion after, you know, and whether it's how they pack things, how they receive things, how they sign things, you know, again, the typical. And we know we got to do a little bit, we got a couple of spelling errors on proofing ballots, so we were talking actually about it today, Melissa and I. And, okay, great, nobody noticed, but it bothers. Triggers our OCD, is like, that was not supposed to be, a yes. All right, last thing we want to talk about is our communication and voter registration plan. The outreach programs we have, for voter registration, we are looking at doing direct mailings to households without registered voters. We've identified a number of addresses that DCAT has in their system that we don't even have in a voter reg system, which means nobody's registered there to vote. Could be news households, could be for a variety of reasons, right? So one of the things we want to do is send them out letter, dear whoever lives here, but he's registered. Just in case, here are a couple of registration forms. Maybe you haven't had time to, right? Maybe it's a rotational part, I don't know, but we are looking at doing a pilot with some credit agency. People tell their bank they moved, they don't tell us, but the bank, some of those credit agencies have programs now where they can share data with us. And we can trigger notices, we can send letters and say, hey, Melissa, are you saying Melissa Cuba that used to live here? Bank says you moved there. How about you register? I'll take your registration. Here you go. Okay.
That's great.
Hopefully. No, the experience from counties that have done it in other parts of the country has been positive. And it's not expensive, right? So we have a VDR program. And then, you know, we're also looking at the usual registration events that are going to be happening through the year. September is voter registration month, National Voter Registration Day. Highlight, hey, get ready. September is going to be a month focused on, you need to be on the rolls to vote in November. And then October is going to be, now you need to be ready to vote, right? We're looking at having some theme campaigns. August, we're talking about this today, Nick and I, back to school. All those college kids that show up, especially freshmen. I just moved. I don't have time to think about this. Well, if you don't think about it before October and you don't register in your new address or get a mail ballot from your old address, because they can choose where they live, then you're not going to be able to vote. So focus on that. Hispanic Heritage Month also next month. And then, of course, October is going to be, you know, get ready to vote, early voting, get out to vote. We're working on our local partnerships, our digital outreach. So that's kind of all the voter outreach, getting the word out. We launched our new website. This wasn't there last time we met. We've got some good feedback, but if there's anything that we haven't realized is not as good as we think, let us know. We've added some features into this. Now, you can view, what am I showing here? Your mail ballot. So now if you're a mail ballot voter, one thing we're going to do is in your own file, you're going to be able to see if we mailed you a ballot, if we received it and the status of it. So instead of wondering, instead of calling us, we can find it on the website. Go in and say, oh yeah, looks like you got it. Oh yeah, looks like it. This is something that a lot of counties have done already. So I'm a big fan of R&D. Robin,
You are a voter by mail.
what's that?
This is for the people who vote by mail.
Who vote by mail. We're also adding voter history. It's not on the screenshot. So now, starting in, I don't know if it's up already. Should be coming soon. Not yet. Yeah, we're almost there. You're gonna be able to log in and put in your information and see, oh yeah, I did vote early in that election. And so this all comes from, again, the theme of transparency, to put more information out there. One of the things that I've noticed over the last 3 years is people will try to find answers when they don't have them. And if we don't have these kinds of tools, then they'll go to third-party websites. They'll go to people who, and it's not always misinformation or ill-intended, but it's not uncommon that people ask us for, give me your voter rolls and give me your mail ballot data, and I'm gonna make a website that answer, and they screw up the data when they try to put up their website, and they give wrong answers. Bottom line is, if we can give them, they don't have to get them anywhere else. That goes in line with that same trend of let's open up, let's be more transparent, let's.
So your voters with special needs, is that where they provide information about accessibility, voting assistance, like those persons that are qualified to assist you with voting? Where
There
they,
are sections on the website that describe the process. This screenshot right here.
that's just the front page.
It's just, no, that's the one that's gonna pop up when you put in your information.
Okay.
Hide it or see my date of birth or whatever we're asking for, and then it's kind of like, hey, here's your file. What do you want to do? I want to look up my sample ballot. I want to see what happened with my mail ballot.
Mhm.
So that's gonna show there for you to
So
be able to get the status.
I'm wanting to better communicate to residents about the change around assisting those that have disabilities that need assistance with voting, the requirements for that.
Correct.
And so, because that is different from the previous years. And so how are we communicating about that change as well as poll workers? I see that we're gonna communicate about the expansion of poll workers, but how we communicate to the residents about this is legal, this is, the expectation. Please expect someone to watch you vote, those types of things. Is there a plan to better communicate those issues?
Yeah, I mean, we have that information is all on the website, but let's talk about it next. See if we want to add a couple of PSAs or, specific components in the plan where we figure out how to get material, right?
I mean, even
Maybe
with
1, 2, 3 steps on how to assist someone, right? So we simply narrow it down, we make it easy.
and maybe you could do like a person that does not meet the qualification, a person who does. Like your granddaughter may not meet it, but a person who does. I mean, I don't know, but I just think that we could be more proactive in trying to communicate that, because I know a lot of people who assist their parents who don't qualify anymore to assist their parents when it comes to voting, just because that's my
I
mother.
like that.
And then the last piece is about the mail-in ballots, the delays on that and the issues. We previously received information about, like you said, they didn't have the date of birth, or they didn't have the matching social security numbers or the driver's license, whatever specific identification information that was originally put on their voter registration didn't match at this particular time. Right. So are we going to communicate about that? Those were just some major issues that I heard from people.
The numbers I'm not so worried about anymore, because over the last 3 years, people who have been using this have gotten used to it, and the numbers of rejections and all of that stuff has gotten down. Our ballot board has done a phenomenal job at tracking, and so I think we're over the learning curve part of it. What we do include in every one of the mail ballots is a pamphlet, right? And remember to put this here, remember to check and call us in case you have questions, that kind of thing. But again, one of the goals we have is with this outreach campaign is to create some very flexible materials and get this agency to help us kind of shape the message, and then we have the ability to hopefully spread it in other ways, right? So you'll see that in a minute.
We also printed our mail ballot applications. We highlighted certain areas, like those required areas that are difficult to reach. We're putting the same kind of insert when we're sending those out. So it's got that information there as well.
And we also have an instructional video that we did right after SB 1's one that changed, right? So right after SB 1, we had some educational videos that we did in all the languages we had to. So we'll make sure we push those back out.
Good. I think that's gonna be very beneficial. If we can have, just a reminder, I didn't know those videos even existed. And so if we can utilize those videos to send out to the community.
Perfect.
I had one about polling locations, because this is voter education and we're often out there year round. The polling locations don't come up until like 30 days before the election.
Yeah.
Is there any way to, at the very least, like either put up the interactive map from the most recent and say, this is from the last election, it will change, or a PDF that can similarly
I hear
caution?
you, but
No.
the risk of this clip haunting me for the rest of my life. People don't read. And people will go in 30 days, they'll find a site, And then they'll call me when the site is not there because of everything we just talked about and say, but your site told me it was there. And I'll maybe say, oh, there was a little no. I'm a big fan of if we can wait till we have the final list.
Yeah.
Now, we have to have that list usually around 45 days when we're doing public tests. Because that's when we lock down the database and everything, right? And then there's like a 5-10 day window, which is where it comes close to that 30 day for us to update the maps and get everything, all the resources and, validate. I'd rather try to speed that process up than give him a preliminary subject to change, because I've had situations where people tell me, but your site said it was there. It's like, yeah, we know we said it, but it's a preliminary.
Okay.
It's always my fault in the end, so. Okay, so outreach, there's gonna be some voter education there. Again, we're gonna keep focusing on the whole open the curtain thing. We're gonna do again the public test. The Open Records Initiative, I think that was great. We scanned every ballot, every document we could, and we put it out there and said, before you make public records request, here it is. Take it, have fun with it, right? It saved us a lot of time, and I think it showed, look, we got nothing to hide. Yeah, there's some forms there that are not signed, and great, people make mistakes, but you know what? We're not afraid to show that either. I think that was a good step. It was very welcome. We are working about, and this concept, again, it's one of those, I'm telling you everything we have, I'm not promising it'll be ready. An Elections Academy, kind of the same concept of the guided tours. Hey, I'm interested. I want to learn. I don't want to just go and see. I want to learn. So, okay, wait, you don't just get the 10-minute walk through the mail ballot room. We're going to sit you down and show you the workflow, show you the processes, and like give you the code sections, like a good, here, you learned something today in different areas, but we gotta kind of create that curriculum yet. So work in progress with that, work in progress. And then part of the voter education is also a little bit what you were talking, strategically focused outreach, which is basically we got communities with specific needs. So senior communities, new citizens, how do we make sure that newly naturalized citizens understand you don't need to wait until you can get a driver's license. The moment you walk out of USCIS with that naturalization document, you can vote with that, right? A lot of them don't know, and they're like, why didn't you vote? Oh, I didn't have time to get a license. You didn't need one.
Right.
Students, we talk about, hey, I just moved in from down to Brazos County, College Station. I didn't know I could vote from there. I didn't know I could register there, right? So law enforcement, did you know that you can keep your address private? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I don't vote because I don't want to register. I want people to know where I live. Guess what? There's a program for you to. So those outreach that are tailored, that are not going to be countywide massive, but hey, let's put something together and share it with the sheriffs, the PDs, the marshals, and say, hand this over to your people so they know how to properly protect themselves. Okay, November election campaign. We're working with a communications company. The county has a contract, which is great because we can just tag onto it. Here are the 4 messages that we're going to focus on. One of them, we still are waiting for them on how to shape it. We want a campaign that is very emotional, but very practical. People understand that people can relate to, right? This is probably our core message. No excuses. We want to make it a campaign where people understand they have a role. Look, we prepped 460 sites. The commissioner is calling all these places to get you 3 extra polling places. We're opening up. We have early voting. We have mail ballots. You have extended hours on a weekend. Like, yeah, there's free rides on DART. Like, so when somebody says, why don't you vote? Hey, we did our part. There's no excuse to not vote in Dallas County. If you didn't vote in Dallas County, you can go anywhere. We have vote centers. Like every time there's what was the reason you didn't show up? Well, I didn't know where to go. Well, you can go anywhere. That's right. I didn't know what to vote on. You can get a sample ballot. There is no excuse. So we're probably, this is going to be one of our core messages, right? Also talking about how voting makes a difference. We're talking about finding some of these cases. There's a famous one like 4 years ago in the state of Virginia, a state representative race was mathematically tied and ended up being decided by the coin toss.
Wow.
We're talking like 27,000 votes each candidate. It wasn't a school race of 10 or 12 votes. It's a statewide race, right? Those things happen, and it does, right? We also talked about a little bit about, people are out there rallying and protesting and tweeting angry, and then they show up to vote. You know what? That doesn't count. This is what counts. If you don't show up and vote, it's a waste of time. We really want to develop that messaging of it comes down to actually showing up and vote. And there is no excuse for you not to vote, right? So kind of highlight all these things and get a real heartfelt campaign that people can relate to, and hopefully will help push them out. We are in the planning stage. We should start seeing the first materials right around that September timeline to go into the deadline to register to vote and get out the vote campaign. We made it to the end. That's a good news. Not bad.
Question.
Clear, Chair.
Have you thought about doing any kind of advertising of the website? DallasCountyVotes.org. How to vote, where to vote, go to this website.
That's the campaign.
That is, okay.
You don't have an excuse. You don't know where to go, we're telling you. You don't know what you're.
I mean, how's it going to be broadcasted?
Well,
That's,
That's where we engage with this company, right? Because we talked a lot about, people right now are defaulting to social media. Put it in social media and everybody knows it. Probably a good, 30% of people who don't use social media. How do you get to them? So we've talked about, TV, radio, newspapers, local papers. What papers are the Vietnamese community reading? We got to get in there. What papers are the Hispanic communities reading? We got to get there. What radio stations? Like, it goes beyond, just get a Facebook account and an Insta and you're fine. That's why we're bringing in this company, these experts, to say, hey, help us get in there, right? And instead of doing a 6 month or year-round campaign, let's compress it and let's go, really deep in that amount of time. That's the expertise we're looking for. How do we identify and get in there?
And this sounds simple, but the question came about a lot of times when voters would come and say, I live in Grand Prairie. Well, you're on the Tarrant County side? You're
Oh,
in
yeah,
Dallas
Grand
County.
Prairie is
They
a-
say I could vote anywhere. I said, no, anywhere in
North.
Dallas County. You're on the Tarrant County side, so you can't vote here. We need to make sure we say that too, in Dallas County. If what we're talking about is Dallas County, we're not talking about Tarrant, Collin,
Yep.
Ellis.
And it's gonna
none of
happen
them.
also with Poland and Dallas and some
Yes.
cities up north, and
Yeah.
Mansfield is always a big one also,
Yes, and so is Glen Heights and Red Oak.
so.
Villa.
Oh, yes, Ovilla too.
Louisville.
Oh, yes.
That's right.
Farmers Branch is a problem too. It's got 3 different counties right on the line right there,
They sure do.
and it's a mess.
I know.
Okay.
I mean,
Any other
my,
questions or
oh yeah,
comments?
yeah,
Go.
just, there's so much information, like, if there's a way to talk to the communications consultants that y'all are gonna be working with. Cause even on the website, it's an amazing upgrade, I think, from what was there before, but you still have to go to like 4 different places to get, okay, when to vote, where to vote, it's like, and then it takes you out of the main, and then, so I'm not saying that the website is the issue, it's just like there's so much information. How do you kind of streamline it as best as possible? Because there is an answer to everything, but it's just so much. I don't know. That's my 2 cents.
You know how some websites, they have like a banner that may say, first time visitors, it's your first time or whatever. And they may recommend step 1, the first banner may tell you to check your voter status. Step
Right.
2,
Yeah.
something that kind of prompts you on the 2 to 5 key things that are important on the site.
Yeah.
I think that would be helpful.
There is something like that. I'm gonna open it quickly here, but obviously, any feedback you can give us. Let me see if I can share it quickly. As to what maybe should be in that front screen, but that changes, right? Because depending on the season, the time of the year, of course, it's taking forever to load. Those buttons change, so we know, can you share it? For some reason, mine's not working. So we know, for example, that during end of voter registration, the first button up there should be, how do I register to vote? Once we pass the deadline, it's probably, where's my ballot? Where do I vote? On election day or through early voting, what are the wait times? Where can I go? And then, of course, on election night, where are the results? So I just came in for the results, right? Scrap all the buttons, just give me one big button that says election results here. Got it? So it's this section, right? You're gonna be seeing this part change through the year. right? And so the idea is, once they land on this main page, hopefully it'll catch their eye, right? As soon as they start moving, that common thing that everybody's looking for in that moment should be up here, right there. If you have ideas on, hey, the idea, what we've talked about, Nick and I is, and his team is, we're gonna have those profiles of the year. 60 days, 30 days before the election, voter registration, sample ballot, where do I vote? Then we change, those buttons may come up like ballot screen, believe it or not, that's a popular one. People love to see us.
I had one more question. So is it mandated anywhere that the county has to continue to print those voter registration cards? I mean, you are registered, the
Yes.
thing they get.
Yes.
So it is mandated. Then
It is
all of
mandated.
the people wherever in the county they send me to serve as an election judge, every one of them want to be stamped.
Want to be one.
Get my stamp. I want my stamp.
Yes.
You're gonna send this to me every election season. Well, why don't you have a
Every 2
stamp?
years. Every 2 years is what the law requires.
They
We
want their
spend
stamp.
probably $500,000-600,000 in that every 2 years.
Be a stamp where you put on there.
And that predates voter ID, right? That used to be the voter ID.
Yes.
There's an argument to, now if you don't have ID, you can't vote anyway, just get rid of it, what's the point? But
But
there's
it's
the
the law.
argument of, it's also an alternative type of ID. And so, how do you know who needs it and who don't? There hasn't been the political will to just get rid of it.
Okay. Because I'm always asked about that stamp.
Yeah,
I
that's
came
a-
here
that's
with
a
my,
ton of money.
for my stamp. I'm a stamp.
Here,
Give them a sticker. Vote.
okay.
We're gonna go ahead.
I give them the sticker. That's not enough.
We're gonna go ahead and open it up to general public comments if there's no additional questions. We're gonna open it up to general public comments. We have one in the room. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I'd like to address the kind of the elephant in the room. So, thank you, Mr. Garcia, for your commitment to transparency in the elections. It is commendable. But I think after 5 years of, trying to get countywide voting to work in Dallas County, it's time to seriously consider if we should go back to precinct level voting. And the reason I say that is we've had, again, 5 years of irregularities, unreconciled elections in terms of the voters that checked in to the ballots cast. And at the end of the day, if you look at all of the problems that we have with this system, there's no way objectively that you can say that we're operating with a system that the legislature approved. And so connectivity is so poor that we don't even make a big deal out of it anymore when people are voting online. And so I think 2024 was the eye-opening year because I think that's when a big chunk of our electorate realized that the problem with countywide voting, the way we're operating it is some percentage of the electorate gets their sacred right to secrecy in their vote taken away from them, and they just don't know it. In the May 4th election, 6% of the people that cast their ballots had their right to secrecy taken away from them because the Texas legislature gave the citizens the right to review certain things about the way the election process works. That's ballot imaging, that's precinct level reconciliations. You know all of this. And so you know where the problem is. And frankly, just getting a letter from the Secretary of State that says, we're going to take those rights away from the citizens to make sure that their elections are fair and accurate. It's not a solution because it doesn't make those people that realize that, well, it's not a problem now. We've shut down the access. So now only the people with a swipe card to the election department have the right to know how you voted. It doesn't make them feel any better.
So, a couple of things, may I?
Absolutely.
A couple of things to untangle there. Number one, and I've told this to people who are saying this. The first issue is you're not going to solve the voter secrecy issue by getting rid of countywide. Because if I understand, the theory is, look, if you're the only person that votes a certain type of ballot that goes to a place, then the only ballot of that kind in that box has to be yours. Correct? That's the essence of everything that's in
If
front.
you vote
That's That's right, right? Okay. I can tell you that when this discussion started, I downloaded the rosters from the Republican primary of March 5th. And there's almost 3,000 people across the state of Texas in counties that are not vote centers that have the only ballot of that type in a location. So getting rid of countywide is not going to solve it. Now, does countywide increase the probability that it happens and the occurrences? Yes. Is getting rid of it going to solve the problem? No. I think anybody who tells a lawmaker, get rid of countywide and this problem is going to be solved is lying.
May I?
So that's one. So I wouldn't support getting rid of countywide with the intent of solving that problem because it wouldn't. There's still that problem to solve, right?
So my response to that would be in precinct level voting, if you have that problem, it's because you've created too many vote centers. And so you got people spreading out too far.
But
And
again-
so,
but
and
again-
so you can solve a lot of this problem in Dallas County by not having the ridiculousness of less than 75 people showing up to vote in a vote center. Because maybe with a public education campaign where you tell people, if you travel real far from where you live to vote, which is the whole point of countywide voting, there's a really good chance that people can figure out how you voted. And so I just think I think voters have a right to know that that's.
I disagree, right? That's a discussion out there, but I'm glad you said that because you just confirmed it. There's more than where you vote, the size of the precinct.
Yes.
The divisions that we're forced to do, like a precinct can't be split by a Senate district, a congressional district. That creates smaller pockets. The smaller the
Right.
pockets, the more unique the ballots, and that combined with other factors is what leads to that.
Right.
So my main point is if you ask me, would you support getting rid of countywide to solve this problem? My answer is no, because it's not gonna solve it. It's gonna make it less prone to happen, but it
Yeah,
doesn't solve
you're
it.
taking the numbers down from 6% to maybe 2 ballots. in
So
those
what are we
places.
saying? We don't care about those two. Either we care about it or we don't. That's my position, right? That I've always been a person who says, if we're gonna solve a problem, we're gonna solve it. If
Yeah.
we're not gonna solve it, then we're not gonna dive into it, right?
Right.
So I don't disagree that it helps, but it is wrong to say that it solves it. I think the true solution is looking at precincting, how we group these ballots, how, at this point in time, when you have automated tools to vote and to count ballots, you don't need to have these forced small pockets of unique ballots, right? And so that kind of thing, precinct lines, all of that. The other part, and we talked about it in the meeting last month, we did solve the connection problem.
Have we?
And ever since March, we've had pretty much real-time update of the poll books. So that problem's gone. And we know there was an infrastructure problem there. That's not a problem of vote centers. That was a problem of our infrastructure that we solved. So again, getting rid of that wasn't the problem. It was, let's solve our network issue and get vote centers to run real time like they are running now, right? So now we know when Hyder checks in here, immediately every other location knows it, right? We do have issues like, for example, when you have a curbside unit and it goes out, it's not getting updates real time, but as soon as the unit comes back in,
Sure.
the poll book, it updates, right? So that problem has been solved. We're not going to solve anything by getting rid of vote centers. But yeah, that's my feedback to you. I'm sure there was more in there, but that's what the highlights. I don't know if anybody else has any.
Is there any other general public comments in the room or online? Anybody online? If not, then we would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
That was.
All those in favor? Aye. Carries. We are adjourned.
Can I get?